This is Andy Perrault for Boxing Social Association with Betfred, and I'm joined by trainer Jamie Moore. I say trainer, but former boxer as well, Jamie Moore. Jamie out here in what is usually sunny Las Vegas, but hasn't been these last couple of days. But how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, mate. I think I brought the rain with me from Manchester.
Oh, I'm glad you haven't, not me. Obviously, you're out here preparing Carl for his bout next weekend. Just talking about how preparations have gone as we're closing on fight night.
Yeah, obviously. We're at a stage now where all the hard work's done. Earlier in camp, it was a case of just sort of wrapping him in cotton wool a little bit because of the problem with his hand. We had to ease his way into it steadily just to make sure we didn't trigger off any problems or make it worse than it was. So it was very much a case of the first sort of 4 weeks, just gradually building up and easing his way in. And then we started doing light bits of sparring and stuff like that, and then gradually built it up. And to be fair, it's worked really well because he was able to carry the training camp from last time over. He only had sort of 3 or 4 weeks off, and then he carried that fitness over, the sharpness, the timing, and in a way, in a strange sort of way, I think it's benefited Carl, because I'm a big believer in when you get to this age and stage of your career. So Carl's 32 now and he's got a lot of experience under his belt. Your body responds better and faster to a training camp because he's been through it that many times. So Carl's obsessed with doing 10 and 12 week training camps, and I've been saying you could be ready in 6, certainly 8. So a shorter training camp would benefit him better because he'd be fresher. But I understand it's a psychological thing as well as a physical thing. So I always let him do it, but I always hold him back a little bit. Whereas this has made him slow down and hold him back. And he's done less sparring that he would do, but he's done around about the amount of sparring what I would have generally want him to do at this stage. And it's worked brilliant. He's been saying how fresh and how sharp he feels because of the lesser rounds than what he usually does. So it's worked well, and he's found out about it in the wrong sort of way, but hopefully in the long run that'll benefit him.
One thing which I want to pick up there, you mentioned the injury and how it carried over slightly into his camp. I know you'd have had certain experiences when you was fighting and how to cope and manage those situations, but as a trainer now, how have you found those type of situations, not just with Carl but with other fighters in your stable, and trying to manage it?
I've got to say, if anybody from a training point of view was going to be able to manage injuries while they're training, I'm probably the best person to experience to advise someone to do it. I had so many problems injury wise. By the time I was 25, I was riddled with injury problems with my shoulders and my elbows, not necessarily my hands. I had problems with my hips. So me and Oliver used to work training regimes around the injuries. So it's very much a case of we need to get some training done, but we've got to avoid these sort of exercises or areas, and basically just get the best out of what you can. So I've used that experience from my fighting days and the input what Oliver would have, but also understanding that he used to allow me to sort of push the guidelines and say, listen, I can't really do that. He'd say, listen, you have to be honest with me. I don't want to be injuring you anymore, so you've got to be honest with me and tell me. So I've definitely got that sort of relationship with my fighters. I like them to give me quite a bit of input on how much I can push them, because the fact of the matter is, they're the only ones who know. I can guess and he can tell me about an injury, but if I don't know how much it's hurting him, how can I help him avoid sort of certain situations? So definitely my experience as a fighter has helped massively in this situation.
Just to obviously loop back to Carl, we've mentioned that we're out here for him, but you are going in next weekend, first fight up at super featherweight. How do you think he's adjusted to his new weight?
Yeah, he's not changed anything. I think any fighter will tell you if they got the benefit of an extra couple of pounds, they wouldn't have to change anything or increase their intake. They just wouldn't have to lose as much for the actual weigh-in. So that's been the case with Carl. I like the fact that he's going to be less depleted, fresher. I think McCreary is a tall, rangy, slim fighter. So even though he's quite big in stature, I don't think he's big as a super featherweight. So he's testing the waters to a certain extent, but there is fights there at super featherweight, and Carl's ultimate ambition is to win a world title again. So hopefully we can get one of the super featherweight or featherweight champions next out. But I mean, I think worst case scenario, the Valdez fight is there as well, and that's just a massive fight for boxing in general. So there's loads of Top Rank have got so many fighters around that weight. There's loads of options for Carl.
We will touch on the future, but just to stick with McCreary, how are you kind of expecting the fight to play out next Saturday?
He's a sharpshooter. I'd call him your sort of typical American sharpshooter. Likes to dictate the pace. Nice and tall ranger, sort of left hand low. Likes to get you behind a sharp shooting jab. But ultimately, they like to dictate the pace. And the first part of beating somebody like that is to not allow him to dictate the pace, take the fight away from him, make him feel uncomfortable. Carl's really good at doing that. So as soon as this fight was mentioned, I looked at him, seen he had a good record, but style-wise, I knew it was right up Carl's street. So I expect him to look good. He's had some fights, Carl, since he's been with me, where Donaire, for instance. Everyone thought Donaire was past it. He's proved since then he isn't. And I'd said on the night afterwards to Carl, I said, in time, this win will look much better for you, which he has done. I know, obviously, Donaire's gone back down in weight and Carl's naturally a little bit bigger, but his punch power is phenomenal. And for Carl to be able to box and dictate, he has to be really cautious. That's not his ideal style. He doesn't like to fight in that way. He's more aggressive generally. So I think this fight will suit him much more, be more of a fan-friendly fight, and I think you're probably going to see the best of him.
You mentioned in a couple of questions ago the possibility of maybe moving back down to featherweight, depending on where the opportunities lie. In your own opinion now, at this stage of Carl's career, I'm sure you'll admit he's not going to be around forever now. He's coming towards the twilight years, as it were. What do you think will be his best weight now? If you could say to him, just settle at one weight, what would it be?
Well, a lot of people don't agree with me. I've said Carl should, if we can get Carl a world title fight next time and he can win a world title, he should win a world title and walk away. Walk off into the sunset. Not enough fighters do it. There's boatloads of money for him to earn and loads of more achievements what he could do, because physically he's still capable of doing it. But I'm more concerned about Carl Frampton, the person, the man, his family, his wife and kids at home. So I'd much rather him walk away healthy, with his bank balance intact. Of course there's always going to be more opportunities for him, but legacy is as important to him as earning financial money. And if he can be a 3-weight world champion or regain a world title at featherweight, then I'm sure there'd be massive fights there for him, but I would love him to walk away and go finish on a high. What a way to cement his place in the Hall of Fame than to walk off. How many fighters can you name who retired as world champion? Not many. So I really would like him to do that. It's not an easy ask, but that's why it would be such an accomplishment for him to do it.
Obviously, you mentioned the possible Valdez fight being with Top Rank. I know someone who isn't with Top Rank but another world champion. Carl's wanted that trilogy fight for so long, Leo Santa Cruz. He's fighting on Saturday against Miguel Flores. Firstly, what are your thoughts on that bout?
Yeah, I think Santa Cruz should get the win. I don't think it's through any fault of Leo's that the fight's not happened. I think it's his team around him. Different promotional companies, so it's always hard to make the fight politics-wise. So I don't think it's through any fault of their own as fighters. But I've got to say, I don't think it'll happen. I really don't. I think it's too difficult. There's too many obstacles in the way of making that fight. I hope so for Carl's sake, because it really would be a treat for the fans. But looking at what would be more realistic. A third fight with Santa Cruz or a rematch with Josh Waddington. A rematch with Josh Waddington's miles more likely. So, again, that's such a difficult fight. We know how difficult it was the first time, but I still believe that if Carl would have stuck to the tactics and not got involved like he did in the first 3 rounds, then the fight could have gone down a different path. I'm not saying that Josh Waddington, I'm not trying to put any sort of a mark on his performance. Was fantastic, and in a way he forced that start of the fight on Carl, so you've got to give him massive credit. But I do believe that if Carl was given the opportunity again, the fight could be different.
You did mention Josh Warrington there as well. Kid Galahad, who he beat second to last time out, he's been granted another final eliminator. What are your thoughts on that IBF granting that?
I mean, it was a close fight against Josh, so I'm not surprised by that. I think I scored it to Warrington. I think it was by 1 or 2 points, but I couldn't argue either way. I thought a draw may have been a fair result. There was a lot of negative rounds, so I was scoring rounds to Josh because I liked the fact that he was trying to win a round. I didn't really see that Kid Galahad was being effective in nullifying what Josh was doing, but he wasn't actually trying to win the rounds, if you understand what I mean. So, but again, it was close. There was not much in it. So I'm not surprised that's happened. But people like Kid Galahad will always struggle to get top class opposition because they're in the Who Needs Him club. You know, it doesn't bring revenue, doesn't bring a lot of money, doesn't sell tickets, and he's an awkward night's work for anyone. So, but I'm glad he's getting his opportunity because this is a tough sport. You know, just because you haven't got a fan-friendly style doesn't mean you shouldn't get opportunities. So, you know, I don't begrudge anybody in life, anywhere, not just in boxing, in general, getting their opportunity. So good, I'm glad for them.
Just to move away from the featherweights and super featherweights onto the rest of your fighters, and we'll try and remember them all. Start off this Friday, Jack Catterall obviously out in Dubai on an MTK show. How have your conversations gone? How have you found trying to work with Nigel, who's flew out there, and just trying to make sure Jack's on track for Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've done all the training back at home, so we've done it between me and Nigel. That's the beauty of having somebody as part of your team who you know and you can trust, and all the lads know him and trust him the same way. Scenarios like this unfold, that's when it comes into play. I think, you know, I spoke to Jack when the fight was first mentioned. I explained to him the fact that we'd already had plans and we was going to be in Vegas, but Nige could go out and do it. And he's such a level-headed, confident fighter, Jack. He's got so much experience. When he was 18 or 19, he was out in Vegas sparring Mayweather and Canelo. So for him to have that sort of experience under his belt has stood him in good stead for situations like this. You know, it didn't faze him one little bit. He said, Jay, don't worry about it. I'll be sound. I'll go out there, do the job, and then we'll just wait until the new year and get this world title shot. So I FaceTimed him this morning, or it was in the evening time for them. It was in the morning over here, and he was near enough on the weight already with a day to go. So he's done everything's gone to plan, and if he performs like he's been performing in the gym, you're going to see a special performance on Friday.
Jack's obviously waiting for that WBO world title shot when he's eventually able to drop for him. Obviously Jose Ramirez has other commitments at the minute, and the potential for Ramirez to face Josh Taylor in an undisputed fight is there as well. But with that in mind, are there any thoughts, is anything you've kind of seen in Jack that may suggest he may at all take his eye off Friday night because it isn't the type of fight that he wants at this stage?
You see, this is not an easy fight, what he's got. I can't even think of the kid's name, but there was a few names sent to us, and there was, out of the 3 guys what got sent, this was the most difficult fight. But also, it was stylistically the best sort of opponent, which he's not as good as Ramirez, but in the similar sense where he comes forward and applies pressure, he is. And I said, Jack's at the stage now where if you give him a walkover job, he'll drop to that level. He needs this sort of test in front of him to bring the best out in him. And if he's going to send a message out to Ramirez or anybody at the light welterweight, he needs a test in front of him, somebody who's going to apply that pressure and put him under the cosh to get a response out of him. So we've been sparring with Sam Higginson, which has been fantastic. Honestly, you'd have paid good money to watch them spars because I needed him to feel uncomfortable and understand how he's probably going to feel in a fight such as Ramirez, because you don't want the first time you feel like that to be in a big massive fight. So he's been through those situations in the gym. He understands. The main thing when Jack came to me was we needed to add a few more gears. He was so skillful and so patient, but a little bit one-paced, and he's got those gears now. They're there, and I really feel like this is going to be one of the standout performances of his career up to date because he's in such good form.
Moving away from Jack and on to Martin Murray and Rocky Fielding, who were both successful last week in their bouts. Happy with their performances?
Yeah, definitely. Martin's was a solid workmanlike performance. It's always good to get the rounds in because, you know, it could be, you never know how long it's going to be before Martin's out the ring again. So he got a good solid 8 rounds in. I think he maybe could have stopped him towards the end if he'd have gone through the gears a little bit, but happy with his performance. Rocky's, what a knockout that was. He came back to the corner at the end of the first round, and I was saying with him, don't wait for him to stop punching, punch with him, punch in between his shots because his chin's up in the air and he's open for it. And what a combination, you know. Again, Rocky's been a bit patient. He had that problem with his toe where it frustratingly had to pull out last time, but he's got a win under the belt now. It was 11 months since he boxed against Canelo, and he's in a position now where, I mean, we're not really sure whether he'll stay at super middle or move up to light heavy. He's a big super middleweight, but there's options at both weights for him. So he's the next world champion. He's a decent name in the super middleweight division. So I'm sure there'll be options there in the new year for him.
Just to stick with the super middleweight division, one of Rocky's old opponents, Callum Smith, fights John Ryder back in England on Saturday. What are your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, you know what, I think it's a good fight. I think Ryder's done really well over the last couple of years. I think a lot of people was writing him off, but he's on a crest of a wave at the minute. But he's in with Callum Smith. And Callum Smith's a phenomenal fighter. He's absolutely huge for the weight. I think Ryder's probably, I wouldn't say he's a middleweight, but he's probably stuck in between the two weights. So, you know, I've got to give Ryder his props for the performances he's had over the last couple of years. But when you're going in against someone like Callum Smith, I've got to go with Smith. I think he's got too many strings to his bows. He punches so hard, and John Ryder is first and foremost a bit of a pressure fighter. He likes to apply the pressure, come forward, and I could just see him walking into problems against someone like Callum.
Moving on to the rest of your gym, start with Chantal Cameron as well. A couple of weeks ago now, she was out once again. She talked about her performance and her win.
Yeah, big win for Chantal against Sanchez, former world champion, and she did a great job on her. You know, she dictated the fight, hurt her a few times, put her down as well. So can't fault her. She's improving. There was a few little windows in the fight where you've seen there's little bits of improvement what she needs to make, but she'd never been in a ring with somebody up until that point who was good enough to cause her problems, to make her aware of those little vulnerabilities. So I'm glad that's happened now, because she's mandatory for Katie Taylor at lightweight and for McGaskill at light welter. So if she's going to step up, which inevitably that'll happen, it's always good for her to be able to highlight a few of her weaknesses and give her that opportunity to correct them first before she goes in there. So, you know, I was hoping for her to get her another 2 or 3 fights before she fought someone like Katie Taylor, but I'm pretty confident now that we can go in there and have a great chance of winning that fight.
Then on to the last couple of members who are sat with us, well, just behind us. Stephen Ward, firstly, getting ready for that Golden Contract tournament up at light heavyweight. How's he been looking in camp?
Yeah, great. I mean, Stephen's he's a big light heavyweight. We were sort of contemplating, toying with the idea of him moving up to cruiserweight. Then this opportunity came up, and we said, you know what, it's worth the sacrifice and the calories and the effort to get down to light heavyweight. So he's in real good form. The fight last time out with Liam, it was such a tough, physically tough fight. Horrendous cut over his eye, so he needed a bit of time out of the ring to let that heal up. Needed his body to recover from that war. But the lessons, again, that's given us the opportunity to look at his vulnerabilities, the stuff what he needs to work on, and that's what we've been doing. Offensively, he's quite tight, Stephen. He knows how to lay his hands go. He's got a good grounding from the amateur background, but defensively he needed to tighten up a little bit. There was a few little issues what we needed to work on. He's been working on them. I can't fault his work ethic. He's so dedicated. So I think he's got a great chance of winning it. It's one of those things that the tournament is stacked with talent, so you can fight anybody's corner about who's going to win it. But Stephen Moore's got a great chance of pulling it off.
Who do you think Stephen's toughest opponent, or toughest possible opponent?
Again, Liam Conroy, we've already got proven record there, so we know that was a difficult fight, so he's won. Jose Burton's an ex-British champion, heavy-handed. He's a good fighter. You've got the former British champion, Bob Adjisaf, who's the tall, awkward southpaw. You know, there's a few unknown quantities where you struggle finding footage online. It's just a difficult tournament, but they're all in the same boat. That's what I like about this, and I think what's going to stand Stephen in good stead for this is he's not that far out of the amateurs, so he's used to going into a tournament, weighing in, and then finding out who he's fighting the next day. So he's not having that preparation, so that's a good thing. So you know, it's great for boxing. I think MTK have done a great justice to boxing, where they've come up with this format. It keeps it exciting. So you know, it's a little bit of a mixture of the prize fighter and the contender from years ago. But the end goal or the end prize is a massive contract with a big promoter. So for these fighters who are coming through like this, it's a massive opportunity for them.
And finally, the last man in your stable, Aqib Fiaz. At the early stages of his career, he's only his fourth fight. He's getting ready for his fourth fight. How have you found trying to work with someone at such an early stage of their career?
Do you know what? He's an absolute pleasure to work with. We had him sparring with Carl before the Warrington fight, so I could see his talent. He's a lovely kid. He's got a lovely family behind him who are supporting him, and he's one of those fighters where he's just a sponge. As soon as you mention something what he needs to work on, you can sort of walk away for 5 minutes, and then you turn around and look at him on the bag or in the ring, and he's working and still working on what you just spoke to him about. He's a real student of the game, and he's so naturally talented. He's had some good sparring over there at Vegas already, so education-wise, he's just soaking it all in, and he's learning so much at a young age. Similar to what Jack Catterall did, you know, he was fortunate enough to come away to places like this early on in his career and pick it up, and it stood him in good stead in the long run. And I'm sure that'll be the same for Aqib. He's stepping up to the 6 rounds now for the first time in his next fight, and I'm looking forward to the journey. You know, up until this point, I've inherited good fighters. You know, Tommy Coyle was my first fighter, and he was already established. He was on his way up through. But Aqib's the first guy who I've got the opportunity to put my own little stamp on. So I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds and seeing how it progresses.
And just a couple more fights I just want to get your opinion on, because I know I've kept you for long enough and there's others waiting to talk to you. This weekend, obviously, I've come out for the Wilder-Ortiz fight, Wilder-Ortiz 2 I should say. What are your thoughts on the rematch?
I think Wilder, I think maybe, you know, he could get him out of there early. Ortiz is 40 now. He's not old really for a heavyweight. And to be fair, he looks in better shape than he did last time. But I think, you know, there's a big fight on the horizon for Deontay Wilder, and I can't see any slip. I think he'll be razor sharp. I think he'll be better than last time from the experience of fighting him before. So I think he'll have learned more lessons, and he's more adaptable because he's younger and fresher. Whereas Ortiz will be pretty much the same as he was last time. So and if he's lost that sort of split-second reaction or timing because of his age and stuff, then you don't want to be losing that against someone like Wilder. So I can see Wilder winning, and I can see him winning big early.
And my final question on another fight, which is about 2.5 weeks away now, out in Saudi Arabia, Ruiz-Joshua 2. Jamie, as we're closing on that, what are your thoughts on it? How do you see the fight playing out?
It's such a fascinating fight. I was there at the first fight, and as that unfolded, everyone was just in, you know, gobsmacked at what he was watching. So you've got to give him credit for taking the straight rematch. He didn't have to. He could have had an easy touch in between. But it just shows the sort of mental fortitude what he's got. He looks like he's really knuckled down. He's lost a bit of muscle. He looks more athletic. I think that's the way for him to win this fight. I think he keeps it simple. Basically, get him behind a nice long jab, give him that little bit of space in between, not rush in if he lands that big right hand, which he did last time. Because if you watch the fight back, every time he got caught, it was when he's going the second or the third phase. So I think if he keeps it simple and just sticks to what Rob McCracken's the tactics, what he sets out, I think he can win it. If he goes looking for him, I think he could end up in the same problems as he did last time. So I'm hoping that he sticks to the tactics and keep. I don't want him to go out there and feel like he's got to make a statement. The main thing is getting the win, and I still feel like Anthony Joshua's developing. You know, he only started boxing late. He's still maturing. He's still education-wise. He's still taking it all on board. So there's massive room for improvement. I think if he goes in there and sticks to a game plan what Rob sets out, he can win it. But it's not an easy task.
Well, Jamie Moore, I've kept you for long enough now. I'm just looking at the timer on my camera. But I appreciate you giving up your time, obviously in camp as well with Carl. Your last hard week, I know it was difficult for you to find the time. So I do appreciate it. Thank you for speaking to myself and Boxing Social, and I'll catch up with you back in the UK soon.
No problem. Thanks, pal.
Cheers, Jamie. Thank you.